There's this story in the Bible which really stick with me. In this story, Jesus and his disciples are in the middle of the sea on a boat. And while Jesus is asleep, suddenly a storm awakens. The water is slamming against the boat. The wind is really pushing and pulling the boat from left to right. And as the wind is crying, the disciples, they rush to Jesus and say, "Jesus, don't you see? And don't you care about the fact that we are in this storm?" And Jesus replies by walking towards the sea, looking against it, and says, "Be still." And the storm stops. Now, some take this story very literally. They believe that Jesus is with God as on his side, able to fulfill miracles and to actually master nature. And thereby, by saying the word, "be still," that the storm was cleared. And I'm not here to tell you what to believe. But there's another way to look at this story as well, which is in a more psychological, neurological way. And what is truth? Truth is a narrative, a story which someone believes in order to fulfill his own needs. So therefore the truth can be a selfish thing to chase. Because when you can say, well, this is my story and this is my narrative and this is the truth, then therefore someone else's story is not true. But if we look at this perspective that multiple truths can live at the same side, simultaneously, coexisting in this universe, in multiple dimensions, then you realize that there are multiple ways of looking at the situation. For example, when I look at this lens, this cap of the lens, you see it now in this perspective, it's maybe a sort of a letter M. You see what I mean? It's that little wave in here. When you look from up, then it's a circle. And if I turn it that way, then it's a straight line. Or it's a kind of oval. Now, the question is, what is true? The answer is, they're all truths. It all depends on the point of view. That being said, going back to the story of Jesus, it really inspires me. Because it reminds me of how I myself can step into the role of the disciples. Because when there is a storm, I tend to panic. And I tend to think about all the things that I can do to dissolve and to solve the problem, stating in a way that there is a problem. But if you step in Jesus' shoes or in his sandals, you see the point of view in which there is no problem at all. Because the only thing he says is, "Be still." When we're working on our business or when we're following our passion, we tend to focus on the goal. And the goal is to establish something, to create something, to get to an end, to make something out of nothing. And while we're doing that, in the process, sometimes we get lost because it's a deadline or you want to achieve a specific goal, which is getting amount of views, get clients, whatever it is. It makes you want to force your way into the storm. And then there's the other way, which is saying, go with the flow. Well, I used to do that as well too, and it's not really helpful either. So now we have two things here. We can fight the storm, as the disciples were doing, or you can go with the flow. But if you do that, you don't know if the flow will take you either to a still, lovely little lake in which you will sit and be able to fish and nourish yourself with all the nutrients of the water, or the flow will guide you towards a waterfall and you will fall and plunge yourself to death. So you don't want to take that risk. You don't want to say, I allow my entire flow of energy be taken by the universe, because if you do that, then you don't know what you run into. I realized something. It's neither going against the stream and it's not going with it as well. It's being in balance and aware of what is helpful for you at that moment by looking around and being aware, not only with your eyes but also with your ears, all your senses. You got that gut feeling because you have that feeling in your heart as well, if something resonates with you or it doesn't resonate, because even the term resonate comes from an energetical way at looking at vibration, because frequency is also tuning into certain tones, and something or someone can either resonate with you or not. You're not on the same wavelength, you're not on the same vibe. You see how we, in our common language, in our common tongue, are already using this terminology without us being aware of it. But now you are, because now we bring an awareness to it. So, circling back to finding balance in determining, okay, is this flow pushing me towards my goal? Because you know where you want to go, right? You know where you want to paddle to. So if it's helping you, then go with it. And if you see a stream which is pulling you against the current in which you do not want to go, now what people do when they are in a canoe or in a boat, they paddle around the stream. They always find a way. And it really takes your awareness to find a way and timing of when it is that you should paddle and when it is that you should allow yourself to be taken with by the flow. So how did this look practically? Well, I was paddling against the stream. I was splashing the water. I was creating content and planning, and I was making so many videos. And I thought that by taking action, by doing, I was working towards my goal, because obviously that's what an entrepreneur does, right? He takes action. Yes, he does. But he also knows when to be still. And being still doesn't mean that you do nothing and that you are staying quiet and that you remain silent, because when you stay still for forever, you will remain dead. It's not that. But being still at the right moment really nudges you in the right direction. You and I are smart. We can read many books. We can dive into strategies. We can learn from people on YouTube. We can follow courses. We can do all the things to achieve a certain goal. But it takes wisdom to know the difference in between when it's right to take action and when you actually allow the universe itself to take you somewhere. And finding balance in between that. Because you do not want to fall from the waterfall. Now, how do we do that? How do we listen to ourselves? How do we know if we're going in the right direction? How do we know if we're not making a mistake? How do we know? We don't. You don't know. That's the simple answer. And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to know. Because as soon as you realize that you're going towards a direction which you are not liking of, which isn't attuned to your aspirations, you have the possibility to turn around, to take another turn. But the point is, keep moving and keep flowing. You see, if the following questions arises to you, well, Josh, what do you mean? Should I go with the flow, or should I go create my own flow, or should I just go against the stream? What is it that you're saying? Well, I'm saying that I cannot say that for you, but that's something that you have to sense into at your current situation, because it all depends on what's occurring at the moment. But look, hear me out on this one, because we can do multiple things. Most of the times when we create a plan and we have a structure of how things have to be going, then that is our narrative, and we say that our plan has to go exactly that way because it's just the way that it's worked out. You know, this is how it envisioned it, that's how I taught myself to do it, it's written on paper, we have to do it. And then you're stating that your way is the only way, which is beautiful. It's very powerful to create your own way, but there is a but. If you're doing that, you're blocking the universe opportunity to create an alternative flow, because the universe works with energy, and energy always works in the same way. For example, when we have water always finds the way of least resistance, which means when there's an obstacle in the way, it will go around. It will even go under. You know, water will always find and create the way of least resistance. And when it comes to energy, there's also the flow of energy. And if energy flows, you allow it to flow. But if you are blocking it with your specific vision of how things have to be according to your mind, which unfortunately is limited, then, you know, so you see where I'm going with this. So that's why I say you do have to be clear on where it is that you want to go. Your vision is on the horizon because you keep looking where you want to go. But when you're walking towards that goal, or you're going against the river, whatever it is you want to use as an analogy, it takes wisdom to be still in the storm. You know, Bruce Lee said it as well. Bruce Lee said, be like water, because when water is in the teacup, it becomes the teacup. When it's in a bucket, it becomes the bucket. It becomes adjustable to the situation that it's poured inwards. And I'm not saying that you have to be adapting to everyone and everything that's happening into your life, but it does help to manage your energy within it rather than forcing anything. Because there's a difference in between forcing and empowerment, because power is within and force is something that you have to push. So this video, why does it come to you? Well, if we believe in the law of attraction, it came to you because there's a message for you. And I truly believe that now we're facing the end of 2025. We tend to come up with new goals for the new year, which I would always recommend to do. But I also want to remind you that a goal solely doesn't do so much. Because if you narrow your vision down to only working so hard, not allowing the universe to flow with you, then all your energy is lost. Be very, very, very clear about what it is that you want to achieve and write those goals down. But keep yourself open for the possibility of nature to flow and allow opportunities to flow towards you, instead of that you're pushing towards your own specific vision. With that said, I hope you end this year in a lovely way, have nice holidays, and as always, liberate your mind, become the best version of yourself.